In this very special episode, we're talking with Clementine Moss, author of the book From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer. Stay with us. You don't want to miss this one.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff, and Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast, the destination that we feel is the best place for music and movie podcasting. If you want to find that and put it to the test, well, then go ahead and follow us on your favorite podcast provider and check it out every week and determine for yourself. If you want to see the video versions of this, we have a channel on YouTube. You can go ahead and follow us, subscribe there, do the whole thing. It helps, all of it helps support us, and it's greatly appreciated. So we've got a very special episode with a very special guest. Like I said in the beginning, Clementine Moss is with us, and a person that wears many different hats, although she's not wearing a hat today. She is an ordained minister. She is an author, as we're going to be talking about. And she's also a musician and a drummer. And she's been involved with many other musical projects that we could probably do multiple episodes on. But she is also the founder and drummer of Zepparella, which is an all-female Led Zeppelin tribute band. In addition to Clem on the drums, we've got Gretchen Menn on guitar, Holly West on bass, and Anna Christina on vocals. And it is my honor and privilege to welcome Clementine Moss to the show. Clem, welcome aboard. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I've been listening to you for the past week or so, and I just love the in-depth stuff that you do. My first one I listened to is the Creedence episode, which I loved, which was that was a big record for me, Cosmo's Factory, when I was a little tiny kid. So yeah,
absolutely, yeah. Creedence is just, you can't go wrong with Creedence. It's
no,
like I think I said, it's like rock and roll 101. There are certain bands that are just kind of Zeppelin, the Beatles. A lot of those are just the things you need to have in your foundation of music.
That's right. Yeah, parents take a listen. Yeah, parents take a listen and give your kids a good background.
Absolutely, and then you kind of go on your own journey. You kind of splinter off from there. Right. Once you kind of have that, it's like okay, and you go on. But we're here to talk about this book, and I have to say that the title is what grabbed me. From Bonham to Buddha and Back. I thought to myself, okay, how does somebody square the circle of being in a Led Zeppelin tribute band and playing that kind of heavy, hard music, but then also have this spiritual side of incorporating Buddhism and spirituality? I'm like, on the surface, that doesn't make a lot of sense, but you're here to hopefully set me straight. So how did the idea for this book come about?
Well, it started as I had a blog that I started in 2016 called Bliss and Drumming. I still have it, actually. Bliss and Drumming. And I started to, I started it as a way to talk about kind of what it is to be a rock and roll drummer, what it is to be in the band, but also realizing at that time how much my spiritual practice, my meditation practice, how much the same information that I got on the meditation mat could come to me behind the drum kit. How I fall into that space where I'm observing my thoughts, I'm observing my reactions rise, but I'm actually trying to fall into that place where the song is being played through me, without getting attached to my thoughts or to my emotions that are rising. And that's really what we're doing in meditation, is we're finding that observational space where we're observing our thoughts, we're observing our reactions, and hopefully over time we separate the time it takes between the thought and the reaction. And that space is a very calm and peaceful and open awareness space, where I feel like is kind of where we're connected to the truth of ourselves. And sitting behind the kit and playing music, it's kind of the same thing. If I'm in that that awareness and I start obsessing about, my left foot or the fill that's coming up or the guy that's standing over there, what's he doing? There's a good chance that I'm going to come into my thoughts and I'm going to mess something up. Right. So it's about, when I'm drumming, I'm holding that wide awareness of many things happening at once, with the intention of bringing forth and allowing the song to be expressed through me. On the meditation mat, it's the same space that I'm always trying to find. So when I started putting that together, I started writing about it in the blog, and then in the pandemic, I thought, okay, well, I'll just put all those pieces together and it'll be a book. But I had to write a lot more and kind of organize it to make it into a book that you read. So thank you.
Yeah, you speaking on what you were just talking about with drumming and having it kind of being aware but not too aware, because then you kind of get taken out of it. Actually, I wrote that down. Is you wrote in the book also sometimes that it wasn't until afterwards, after you were done drumming, that you were then aware, or finished a gig, that you were aware of some of the sensations that were passing through you. Is that almost like you feel like you're a conduit for
A
the
lot of,
like
yeah.
allowing it to pass through you? And if you become too aware, you can kind of, that's where you kind of, it kind of takes you out of it.
Yeah, I think I do, and when I'm in kind of my woo-woo ideas, which I have a lot of them, but sometimes I do feel almost like a conduit for the songs to move through me. But really, and it's funny because when I think about being a spiritual counselor, that's what I'm doing as well, but with I would say with spirit more, just being able to really hold that space, for the person to come to their own understanding. Um, so it is about kind of hollowing yourself out in a way over time to be able to allow things to move through you. So yeah, I think
Oh.
there is a part of that there. Yeah.
So when did you, going with your spiritual journey, when did you start that, and what drew you to Buddhism?
Yeah.
When did
Well,
that
so
start?
yeah, so I always had kind of a love of thinking of the big stuff, and I was an avid reader, and a lot of the writers that I loved spoke of these things. I was loved the beat writers. I loved, J.D. Salinger and Herman Hesse, and these writers that really did have those kind of themes in their books. So I think through literature first is where I really started to kind of think about and investigate, and having some kind of little experiences in my life that I didn't have a name for, a certain feeling of like real elation at certain times that I didn't understand. But then when I was 26, 27 years old, that was a big year for me. I went to my first 10-day meditation retreat, Vipassana meditation silent retreat. And I started playing drums that year too. So that's drums and meditation found me at the same time.
Coincidence? Or
Or a big life plan of somebody's. I don't know.
stars definitely aligning, because those are two significant things.
Very significant. Yeah.
One journey by itself would be a significant undertaking,
Mm-hmm.
much less two at the same time. And then again, that having them kind of coexist, again, it's things that seem on their face not to match up well, but they do. And the book really kind of goes into it, which um, was for me, um, each chapter kind of, first of all, each chapter is named after a Led Zeppelin song. So you're kind of getting that, and then each chapter begins with a little bit about that particular song. Some of it is you playing it, your experience playing it. Some of it is just you kind of dissecting the song. Um, how did you choose the titles for each one of those chapters, and then how did you connect them to the broader theme of the book or the chapter?
Yeah. Well, I love the idea of taking, all of the ways that I've thought about the song, from learning to play it to being 14 years old and listening to it in my little room, on cassette tape, that I had Led Zeppelin A to Z. I stayed up for 3 days recording it off the radio. That was my Led Zeppelin when I was a teen. And so I have that experience that I had when I was young, and that feeling of the songs before I was a musician, before I was playing drums. And then learning to play the parts and really getting inside of it, the part, and then what the song starts to mean to me. And then looking back at it now from, all of the learning that I've done, all of the training that I've done, and kind of trying to tie in those, some of the lessons I've learned on my spiritual path back to the songs. I think that's a beautiful thing about songs is they can mean something different for every single person. And what a beautiful thing that is. What a beautiful thing it must be to write a song where millions of people each have their own idea about what it is. So it made sense to me that Led Zeppelin has been a huge part of my life, and it kind of made sense to me to pivot around those songs. How I chose the songs were the ones that I had the most personal experience with playing. And then, yeah, that was kind of how I chose them. Yeah.
You said earlier about kind of hollowing out so you can kind of be a little more open. You're also a depth hypnosis practitioner. What is that, and what led to your interest? How did you come to that within your spiritual journey? Because that's another aspect of, I think some of that kind of ties into what I was getting from the book. Also, is some of that there as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, depth hypnosis is a counseling modality that was created by a teacher in Berkeley named Isa Gucciardi, and she has married three things together in this modality. So the first is Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, because Tibetan Buddhism took on a lot of the shamanic practices of the Bön tradition, which is in Tibet before Buddhism arrived. So in Tibetan Buddhism, there's a lot of work with sound and light and those kind of shamanic things. Then Western psychological method, especially transpersonal psychology, which is a way of thinking about psychology where it includes the spirit in it. It's not just mental, it has to do with the spirit as well. And then Carl Jung might be maybe the beginning of that kind of thing. And then shamanic technique. So shamanism is earth-based wisdom. 95% of humanity has a shamanic past, right? And a shaman is someone who translates the messages from the natural world to the community, and who understands that there's more to the natural world than what we just see or touch, that there's another element, another level of it as well. And so, shamanism these days, a shaman these days, people associate with plant medicine. But really it's, in all of the traditions, there are many different ways of altering our reality. And the one that they find going back 100,000 years, the thing that can really put you in a different altered state, is the frame drum. The sound of a repetitive drum will offer you a meditative state. There's scientific ways that it accesses certain brainwave frequencies, but it can bring you into an altered state so you can sink beneath the conscious critical mind and open to your own internal imagery, your own internal metaphoric system. So it's a beautiful modality, and it helps with figuring out those patterns that you just keep circling around in your life, whether it's because of trauma or it's anxiety or depression. Um, there are these patterns that we just keep trying to figure out with our mind, and yet they seem like they're almost bigger than us. And so I work with people, with early childhood trauma, or just people who really want to understand why they can't reach that potential that they can see. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of that, I think, came through in some of your introspection too. One thing that caught me was missing. You said missing the positive by avoiding the negative.
Mm. Mm.
Um,
That was reading the YouTube comments, right?
yeah, and kind of, but kind of, but I think it also it might have. From what I got from the book too, a lot of the struggles you seem to have, or a common theme that comes up is while you're drumming is, what if I'm not good enough? What if I miss this fill?
Mm-hmm.
What if I don't hit this on time? Am I going to throw everybody else off? And I think that when I read that later in the book, because that part about the YouTube comments is later in the book, I was kind of circling it back actually to the things that you were experiencing or writing about.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? I've been thinking lately about what would it be like to, rather than feel, because we're always talking about healing, right? We have to heal from our trauma, have to let go of identities, have to let go of these things. And I've been thinking lately, what would it be like to really just look at our what is wanting to come forward, and rather than feeling like we have to let go of a bunch of stuff, maybe what would it be like to step forward toward that in this positive way? So, I think that our minds our minds want to make us safe. So our thoughts a lot of the time are telling us, all of the worst case scenario. They're bringing us into the future, and it's telling us, all of the potential harm that could be in front of us, or it's judging our moments now by looking back in the past and saying, well, it was better then. We're always going back and forth in time. And I think once we find our way to let go of some of those voices and come right in to now, I think that's what mindfulness is supposed to be about, right? It's about letting go of the anticipation and the wishing things to be different, and just be with what is.
Yeah, the just all the what ifs, right?
Yeah.
The what if scenarios, or what like you said, what could go wrong? What if this? What if I miss this? What if you don't?
And then you do. And then you do. Like if I'm drumming and I think, oh gosh, here comes that fill that I always mess up. I think about this every time I go into that fill in rock and roll, that da da da, like in the middle, like, or right after the first verse where it's just the drums, and I have to do this. It's a tricky little fill. And whenever I get into it, I see like this fear rise within me that I'm going to mess it up. And then I think, there's that fear. You're not going to mess it up. Just do it. And then as soon as I'm like, no, just, okay, there's the fear. I don't need to follow the fear. Just fall into it. I feel like I haven't messed that up in a long time. Once I recognized, there's that fear. Yeah, I'm sure I will again. But yeah, it was very helpful. It's helpful to see those things, those limits we put on ourselves. Yeah.
And then, and in your case, acknowledge that it's a limit. And face it, kind of in a positive way of, you know what? Yeah, I'm this fear is coming up. I always get it. It always happens around the same time, but not today. Or yeah, it's there, but
there it is.
Really
but over here is where no fear is. How about if I just recognize, okay, there's fear, there's no fear. How about if I just go towards the no fear and just play it? Just play it. Just play the thing. Yeah. And when you were talking about the missing out on the positive because you're so focused on the negative, I think that is really connected to that. I'm focusing on what could go wrong rather than stepping into the joy of that place. That place is a great place in drumming, and by being all afraid and getting all tense and approaching it, I'm robbing myself of the joy of the fact that I can play that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and you do touch on that in the book. You touch on the communication between you and Gretchen,
Mm.
the unwritten language of musicians when all the cylinders are firing at the same time within a group.
Hmm.
Where there's that I particularly remember, Gretchen could lean back and that would tell you to kind of lay off a little bit, or,
Hmm.
so I think it's one person, but it's also when it comes to a group too, that you're also feeding, you feel that sometimes they're maybe feeding off your energy if you're not quite there.
Hmm.
And it goes back and forth, right?
Oh my gosh, what a beautiful thing. That's why a band is a wonderful, wonderful thing. One person, I have to say, in every incarnation of Zepparella, and there have only been a few, but Gretchen and I have been in it the whole time, and Anna has been there most of the time. But everybody has always been so good in this band is of when one person is struggling for whatever reason, they're not feeling good, they got some bad news, they're not, whatever it is, that the other three just lift them up. Like it's like it doesn't need to be said. All of the power goes to providing a safe bed for that person to be able to shine. And we do it musically too. I can hear somebody's having trouble, and they do it for me. If I'm having trouble with my drums because it's on rented equipment and the hi-hats running away, I can see that they buckle down. They're with me. They're looking at me. They're making sure that I know where they are and that they're holding me so that I can be distracted and still have this nice structure that they give me. So what a wonderful metaphor that a rock band is in that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So 27 seemed to be the magical year. So we're going to transition into some more Zeppelin centric stuff. First of
Mhm.
all, why 27? Why the drums? And why not earlier? That's
I know.
a triple whammy question.
I know. Well, you read the piece. If you read the book, you read the piece
Yeah.
where I'm 13 years old and I see a female drummer and I'm just completely captivated and I think how wonderful. And then I talk myself out of mentioning it to my parents because I think, they'd never go for it. Right. Which now that I look back, they probably really would have. And then music went away from me. Through high school, I became really obsessed with writing and reading and studying. And then I moved to New York after college to be a writer. And it wasn't happening for me. I was just struggling to know myself. And in that, I realized I don't have anything to say. I haven't lived. I haven't had a life yet. What am I going to talk about? So I had musicians in my orbit, and I ended up starting to play drums when I was 27. And I took my first lesson with Fred Klatz, this amazing drum teacher in New York City. And we just really hit it off, and kind of immediately it was what I wanted to do. And so I feel like drums found me. And then when I went and started studying the shamanic stuff, the depth hypnosis stuff, and I walked in and there was a drum, and the drum was the center of it, I felt somehow that I'd come home, that drums had brought me everywhere, that drums kind of dragged me along to where I was supposed to be. Um, so yeah, it is a strange thing to decide at 27 to be a musician. And when I look back, I can see how kind of immature I was, because I thought, I really do want to have a kind of job where I could work and travel. And so, being a musician would probably be a good idea. And I was like, but you don't play an instrument. Well, okay, well, let's see. Are there any instruments around here that I want to do? It was kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of your early bands was ACD She. Is
That
that
was
correct?
before Zepparella. Uh-huh.
So I'm seeing a pattern now also with AC/DC and Zeppelin. So that AC/DC is a formidable band as well, with a big sound and an iconic type of uh, drum and guitar combination. So what drew it? What was with AC/DC or AC/DC?
Yeah.
So that one, was that kind of like the proving ground for you? Was that like kind of early
N-
days?
no, so I started playing, and then a couple of years later, I was in a band. I started it with my the singer at the time, this other singer guitarist. I kind of answered her ad. We played in her band for a little bit, and then we decided we want to play heavy music, and so we got our bass player Neela, and we started a 3-piece stoner rock band. Um, and so that was in 97, I guess. And we ended up touring quite a bit and kind of being known as road warriors. And it was very heavy hitting Sabbath based music. And in the year 2000, we played, I think 320 shows that year, and we're 3 people in a van driving, went around the country, I think 8 times that year, and different city every night. So that was my proving ground. So when I joined ACD, it was because I had settled in San Francisco after that tour, and I thought, when we're not playing, I want to play with somebody. Who do I want to play with? And I saw an ad for the AC/DC band, and I thought, because I learned at 27, I never really learned other people's music. I just been playing my own, creations. It would be good for me to know how to learn a song, and so that's why I joined AC/DC. And pretty quickly, we became like the highest grossing band in the Bay Area for a couple of years. And it was really super fun. And that's where I met Gretchen. And then we decided that we wanted to play more often. And I said, well, a few years ago, I had an idea for a Zeppelin band. And she said, I'm in. So that was
So
it.
so was it Zeppelin first, or was it Zeppelin because of Bonham, since you were a drummer? What
Bonham.
was Bonham was the entry point for that, for Zepparella for
Well,
you?
so a few years before that with my original band, I said, hey, do you guys want to learn a bunch of Zeppelin songs? Like, I really want to learn some Bonham stuff. Like, I really should know how to play some Bonham stuff. And I kind of wrote out all this list of songs that I thought we could do, and they didn't go for it. And so when Gretchen said she wanted to play more often, I said, well, I had this idea for the Zeppelin thing because I wanted to learn Bonham's things. Somebody had told me, I've played with a lot of drummers, but you really have a Bonham feel more than other people that I've played with. And I guess I took that to heart a little bit. And when I started playing drums, I realized how much I'd been influenced by John Bonham because I loved Zeppelin so much. And Gretchen was like, I want to learn Jimmy Page's stuff, of course, because she loved Zeppelin too. So it was a match made in heaven.
Yeah, and for me as a frustrated drummer,
Oh yeah,
and an
you
air
grew up
drummer. Yeah,
drumming?
I wanted to be a drummer when I was really young. Probably my teens, and I said to my parents, "Hey, I want to take drum lessons." They're like, "You're not bringing drums in here." I'm like, "Okay,
Oh,
I'll take guitar lessons." So
oh,
I opted for something, but it was always drums. But I think I had said it in our Led Zeppelin episode, is that I had always kept Bonham at arm's length because he was so hard to predict sometimes.
mm,
He wasn't a straight ahead drummer, and that kind of like frustrated me in a weird
mm-hmm,
way, that
mm-hmm,
I couldn't predict what was going to come next. Is that,
mm-hmm.
so for me, it was always a tricky situation. I was like, oh, I really love this, but then he'll do some offbeat things or off time signatures, things that throw me.
Uh-huh.
And for that reason, I always kind of I was like, I like this stuff, but it was always like a little, it frustrated me because I couldn't predict it. Maybe that's what it was. It wasn't easy to just kind of tap your fingers to. It challenged you. It challenged me. And I think
It's
at the time,
Yeah,
uh,
I totally get that.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you do really learn when you're playing Zeppelin that they liked to mess with you. You know, it doesn't go 7 times. I mean, it doesn't go 8 times. It goes 7 times, right? He starts the fill on the and of 3, going into the next measure. Like everything is a little bit off, just the structure of the songs. We're just going to add a measure of 2 right here at the end of this thing. I think a lot of that was John Paul Jones, honestly. He's the one who wrote Black Dog. And he said, I want to write a song that there's no way people could dance to. So I think I can totally get that. And we have a joke in the band that, people always want to, people ask to sit in with Zepparella. We love to have people sit in. We have great players sit in with us every now and then on a song. For a while, everybody wanted to do Kashmir. Everybody messed it up. We would go through and we'd be like, you really know the form of it, right? You really are aware of the form. You know what's going on. We'd go through. Yeah. I know. Miss it every single time. We're like, so now we're like, nobody gets to sit down on Kashmir.
Unless you refer them to chapter 16 in your book.
Yeah.
How to Play Led Zeppelin in 12 Steps.
Right.
Which is a very informative chapter. And chapter 16 goes step by step. It's kind of like, I think it's your version of, so you want to play Zeppelin? Well, yeah. Here's what it is. Is this something that you came to after as a result of your learning? Or was it something that you were going, like, did you kind of come upon and say, wow, like if you really want to play Zeppelin, you need to do these things? How did the 12-step program, quote unquote, come to be? Yeah, and do you still use those 12 steps, or is it a little more?
No, that's it. That's how you do it. And I think you could probably take that to be how to learn a song, really when it comes down to it. But I wrote that, and then Michael Melinda, who was working at guitar at Modern Drummer at the time, said, "Hey, you have any pieces that would be?" And I thought this would be a decent one. So they ended up publishing that one. But yeah, it's really fun. And that came much later. That came after I'd been playing Zeppelin for a long time. So
So how do you decide what new material gets added when Zepparella is kind of, in the downtime, I guess, or when you want to kind of freshen up the set lists? Mm-hmm. Is there stuff that's untaught, like never, or is everything fair game? It's just a matter of how's that determined?
Well, we're a no stairway band, so we don't play Stairway to Heaven. We just figured we'd leave something for, in their honor to not touch. And it's funny because we'll go through for hours listening to the songs, going through, picking them out. And at this point, our problem is that what songs do we kick out? It's like there are certain ones we always have to play. We always have to play The Levee because we have a video for it. We always have to play Immigrant Song, and there's an awesome solo section in the middle of it that we love, jam session, in the middle of Immigrant Song. So we always have to play that. We always have to play Whole Lotta Love. We've always ended with Whole Lotta Love. And so right there, that is almost a half hour of music, right? Then we have the Lemon Song, which we've always played and was a real highlight, kind of spotlights everybody. We have Dazed and Confused, which we kind of have to play that or how many more times because Gretchen's playing the violin bow, right? And Zeppelin songs are 10 to 15 minutes. So, we keep saying, okay, we're going to introduce more songs and we have all these ones on the list. But then when it comes time to play them and to kick out those other ones, it's difficult.
It's like choosing which one of your children you're going to throw out of the house.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. So we've had these different, these different set lists through the years of these different songs. And I think it is time for us to start switching it up. But at this point, I think we're just going to have to bring in old stuff because we miss it, But, we don't have a keyboard. However, we do play a song like, Rock and Roll, which has keyboard, or we have played In the Light. We have played things that are really keyboard heavy, and Gretchen is a master at kind of translating that into guitar, and Holly on the bass does a great job of, kind of picking up the slack where there isn't a keyboard. So that does limit things. Gear limits, because we fly into a lot of places. So Gretchen's just bringing one guitar. So, if we have too many key changes or, retunings and stuff. We try to avoid that. And then, a lot of the stuff has an acoustic guitar, which we do have a little acoustic set now of 4 or 5 songs that we've added we could add into the set. But if we're traveling, she can't really bring an acoustic guitar and the amp and all that. So it's kind of limited by the size of the van. Like, I would love to have a gong, but I'm like, do I put it on the back of the van like a big spare tire? Like,
Yeah, I don't know if they make a bag for that you could just put on your back.
Yeah, 5 feet.
Like oversized Captain America shield. Like, is she going to a Comic-Con, a convention, or where's she going?
I know. And then some songs we love, but then the audience is kind of like, when we play it, Gretchen's like, everyone just looks at us when we play that song, even though we kind of love it. So,
what were some of that? What's the head? What is it? What's the head scratcher that people don't get?
Well, it's not that they don't get it. I think that we're probably just not doing it justice in a sense, or maybe it's just a song that not a lot of people don't know. One song that Gretchen and I really love to play, we see it as the AC/DC song of Led Zeppelin, is "Sick Again." And whenever we've played that, it's kind of been met with just kind of blank stares when we play that one. So, but I love that one. So yeah.
Is there a song that you haven't tackled yet that you want to? Is there one elusive that it's like, is it like Moby Dick? Is it like the Great White Whale still out there for you of Zeppelin songs that you guys haven't?
There are many. There are many for me. Yeah, there are a lot for me. For a while we were doing Song Remains the Same, and I really did love that one, but that one has been set aside for a while. So I kind of miss that one. I loved doing In My Time of Dying, which we set aside. We were like, it's a global pandemic. Like, maybe we just set that one aside for a little while. I love that one. That one's really fun. But the ones that I haven't played yet, I would really, really love to do Fool in the Rain. The keyboard is big on that one, so I don't know that we'll ever do that one, but that one's great. And then, of course, Achilles is like my Moby Dick, even though I play Moby Dick, but Achilles is the big one for me. When I started playing drums, somebody said, Achilles, I've been playing Zeppelin for 30 years. Don't even try Achilles. It's too hard, but you'll never get it. Which kind of stuck, talk about limits. Like, don't tell me that.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah. So that's one that I go to and practice. And so it's getting closer and closer, but I don't know that Zepparella will ever do that one.
Cool. So with Bonham, it is a specific, like you said, it's sometimes could be very intricate, off kilter, different time signatures. How do you find moments to get Clem in there? How do you find those moments to kind of personalize, to take it out of just, we just do exactly, we're going to provide you an exact replica, which some people like, and which could be okay. But how do you find those moments to kind of throw in your personality where Clem kind of comes out a little bit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, well, first of all, we chose to do this. And the reason we've done it for so long is because there are those moments where we get to be a band within a band. That A Whole Lot of Love is different every time we do it. There are these moments where Zeppelin stretched out in their live performances in the songs, and we get to do that too. So we have moments where we do it our own way, tipping the hat, of course, to Zeppelin. We don't want to take people too far out of the thing, but I think Zepparella fans really do like those moments when we really can be Zepparella within the structure. And, I will have to say that playing somebody else's music has really made me understand who I am as a drummer, because of all of the ways that I don't do it the way that he does it, subtle ways and bigger ways. I mean, I'll never be John Bonham. Nobody ever will be John Bonham. He was a maestro, and his feel is so subtle and deep that but that's because it's coming from his own emotion, right? So how could I ever capture that? And that really is why people love him so much. So what I have to do is feel how much I love the songs within me and play from that heart. And then that's where Clem comes out. So I see it kind of like writing a sonnet. When you write a poem and you write a sonnet, it's every line has a particular rhythm to it, a certain rhyme scheme, a certain number of lines. And when you are a poet and you write in a form so rigid, it's as if the ideas fly. You don't have to think anymore about what it's going to look like. You just have to come up with what it is you want to say within that structure. So I kind of see playing somebody else's music this way. I mean, symphonies and orchestras have been doing this for centuries, right? Getting into, they're not trying to play it like somebody they never heard before. They're trying to express the song through, through that, express the same part many people have played, but do it in their way and the way that suits the ensemble. So, yeah, so I guess that's what I would say. And Zepparella has a great benefit as a tribute band in that we will never look like Zeppelin, right? We don't have to worry too much about putting on that kind of show where it's where people can look on the stage and feel like they're looking at Zeppelin. We get a lot more freedom, I think, because of that. Yeah.
Cool. Nice. All right. Speed round. You ready for some rapid fire questions as we wind down?
Lay them on me.
Here we go. Favorite Zeppelin album?
One.
Zeppelin 1. Favorite song that you just like to listen to without regard for playing it? Favorite Zeppelin song?
Down by the Seaside.
Down by the Seaside. Best thing and worst thing about touring?
Best thing is touring, period. I love touring. Worst thing is when I'm not feeling well. Actually, no, that's fine too. Like, I don't know. There is no worst thing of touring. Right. I love touring.
I saw an interview. You met Plant twice.
Uh-huh.
If you met Bonham, what would you say to him?
Oh gosh. I just got like this huge welling up. I think I would just cry in his face. I don't know. Okay. Yeah, I think that's what would happen.
Cool. As we wind down, I've got two final questions. First of all, thank you for taking the time to spend talking about your book and about your experiences. It's great. Like I said in the beginning, we're going to drop a link to the in Amazon where you can purchase the books, hardcover, paperback, ebook. It's all there. We'll also drop a link to Zepparella.com so you can find out where Zepparella is, what they're doing, what they're up to. What advice would you give to a new drummer or musician starting out today?
Well, the first thing I would say is get a teacher, a good teacher. Get someone who you love to talk to, who you just like, who just turns on light bulbs. If you, and then I would say, just do what brings you joy. Don't feel like you have to be anything. If what brings you joy is playing 2 kick pedals as fast as humanly possible, then go for it. If bringing you joy means that you get to, play drums when, and back up a singer, or to sing along while you're playing drums, or to program drums, whatever it is that brings you joy, don't listen too much to the way that you're supposed to do things, right? I really feel that enthusiasm is the great path to follow. Are you excited to do it? Are you, is it, then it's all yours. You get to do it your way. But it's really great to have a great teacher to guide you into how to make things learn things as quickly as possible. When I started playing drums, I was embarrassed that I was taking lessons, and because I was talking to someone who was a professional drummer who had never taken a lesson. And I said, oh man, wow, that's amazing that you taught yourself. And he's like, yeah, but what I learned in 4 years, you learn in 2 months. And I took that to heart. I think a teacher is essential.
Yeah, I think that's sound advice for musicians and non-musicians. Do what makes you feel good and try not to worry about it too much.
Yeah.
Right. If you enjoy doing it, go
follow
for
the
it.
enthusiasm. What lights you up.
Yeah. Final question. What's on the horizon for Clem and Zepparella? What's coming? Anything coming up?
Yeah, Zepparella, let's see. We tend to play, we try to do about 2 weekends a month. So, 6 shows or so a month. And we're all over the place. We'll be in the Chicago area in a couple months, which is fun because we haven't been back there in a while. But we have a whole bunch of stuff. We're always working. We have a couple videos that we cut before the pandemic that we got to get out. So that should be coming up. And then for Clem, I'm working on the audiobook. I'm on chapter 60. I'm almost done. I have 40 more chapters. So I'm hoping the audiobook comes out, the Audible book comes out in the next week or so. So that'll be good. I have a record that I've been writing and singing with a guitarist, Daniele Guittardo, who is Gretchen's husband. He's an amazing guitarist and a joy of a musician. So we have an album coming out, hopefully by the end of the year. And and then
anything in the literature sphere as well, or
I'm going to. I think.
Crack at that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start the blog, like contributing to the blog again, and kind of see where that takes me. I have a couple ideas for the next book that are kind of coming out of some of these podcasts and giving me ideas about things that might be helpful to talk about. So yeah, that's kind of the nutshell of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I can't recommend this book enough for. Again, you're going to get a healthy dose of Led Zeppelin, but you'll get a healthy dose of spiritualism, which, again, I really dug. I really liked the contrast. I liked how the balance of the two. And it was a really great and intriguing read. And it was great to meet you and spend time talking with you about this book and about Zepparella as well.
Oh, Dean, thank you so much. Really, thank you. And thanks for what you're doing here.
Yeah. You're quite welcome. So that's going to do it for this episode of the 3324 podcast. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. Go hang out there. We post stuff all the time. It's kind of like the green room of our podcast. You can go there, post whatever you want. As long as it's not bad, we'll leave it up. And then, of course, Amazon.com will put the link for Clem's book. And, of course, the link for Zepparella also in the show notes. So you can please go check those out. And please check out this book and read it and share it and spread the word and let other people know about it. So, for Clem, this has been Dean. We will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.